Hello, good evening. Welcome back to the tunnel after a long layoff. The dream team is back. The internationals are once again thrust upon us. We've got an international doubleheader for both England and Scotland this coming weekend. England kick us off tomorrow night against the Greeks, and Scotland will travel to Croatia on Saturday. So delighted to say I'm joined by my favourite buddies, Tom and Connor. Tom, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, mate.
Glad to have you back on. And Connor, it's been a long time, but we'll pick up from where we've left off, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Aye, that's the trick to these international breaks. They only roll round every so often, although they do feel like they're becoming a much more regular occurrence these days. It's got to be said. But absolutely. Yeah, in for an interesting one as always.
We will come on to that one in due course. Look, we're not going to spend too much time going over stuff that we went over last month. However, there are some kind of new faces in both squads. Let's start with England then, Tom, because obviously you were vocal there before we came on, so I know you're in the mood. The big hitters kind of returned to the squad, you have to say. The likes of Kyle Walker's back in, Jude Bellingham's back in as well. Are you surprised that he's brought the heavyweights back in, so to speak?
No, I'm obviously glad to see those guys brought back in. Some of England's most important players now, aren't they? So no surprises to see those guys brought in. Obviously, Carsley as well didn't get a chance to work with them last time round, so I think he himself will be keen to get him on the training pitch and get working with him in case he gets the job full time. So no surprises with those guys being called up. I don't think there was any surprises with the initial squad either. I think initially the only new name was Dominic Solanke, I believe. He was the only new name from the Carsley's previous squad, obviously his first squad that he announced. So yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I think Solanke's been doing quite well for Spurs of late. I know Spurs have been very Spursy, but I know Solanke's been chipping in with a few goals and a few assists, and I think he offers something a bit different to the likes of Watkins, who's trying to kind of push Kane for that starting position. So yeah, I wasn't surprised with Solanke being called up, but maybe a little bit surprised with who's been called up. I think it was yesterday after
Curtis Jones.
Yeah, Curtis Jones. I think Livramento was called up as well, which I wasn't too surprised about because he was in the first squad, and England are very short on left back options. But yeah, Curtis Jones, I was a bit surprised with, especially when you consider a couple of the names he did leave out this time round. The likes of Eze. So it's it's just one of those, mate. Yeah, nothing really, not too much to talk about, is there? Really, with the squad this time round.
Connor, I'll come to you actually, because just on Dom Solanke now, he's been brought back in after a 7-year absence. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. A player that obviously Lee Carsley knows well. Reports over the last couple of days, Harry Kane's training on his own. He's not training with the group. That continued today as well. Obviously the game's tomorrow night. Does that mean that the striking position is actually up for grabs on this one?
100% it is. Kane obviously not fully fit. As you say, training in his own, that's an issue. And I think when you look at the other players that are in the mixer for England, it's hard to dispute that should be something that's up for grabs. You look at Ollie Watkins, he's having a decent season once again. Someone who I think, if I'm being honest with you, feels of the current attacking options England have got like the most sort of natural successor to Harry Kane for me, Ollie Watkins at this moment in time. I appreciate obviously you've got guys like Saka and stuff like that, but Saka's been played out wide, obviously not as a central striker. Solanke, I think Solanke is a decent striker. I don't think he's showed enough in terms of being clinical enough at Spurs when he's been given the opportunity, bearing in mind he's went there with a hefty price tag on him, which isn't his fault. But again, he's got a bit of work to do. Ivan Toney's probably dented his chances of getting back into a squad again. He's not in this one, obviously, but the move to Saudi, I don't think will have helped his international prospects. And then you're looking at, obviously, is it Madueke, who's the other one that's in the fray right now. So for me, it feels like Watkins is the standout there if you take Kane out of that equation. And I could see him starting in one of these games. Absolutely, if not both.
Well, I was just gonna chip in and say that, like you touched on, Rob. Kane's, he's reported to have a knock. He's been training on his own. So you're thinking, well, why is he insisting on calling the guy up? We're not, why doesn't he give? You're telling me we can't beat the likes of Greece and Finland with Ollie Watkins up front, with everyone else playing behind him, or even Solanke. What there's this weird insistence I find with England on playing Kane, whatever the situation, even if the guy's kind of 50-50, fitness wise, carrying a knock, he seems to play in every game. Now, the player himself, that's fine. You want players wanting to play football, wanting to represent their country at every opportunity. But I do find it a bit odd that, there's this insistence on playing him, even when he's been struggling a bit with injury. And in terms of the competition we're in and the teams that we're going to be coming up against, I just don't understand why there's this mindset Kane has to play. Because you're telling me Ollie Watkins couldn't come in and do a job, or even Solanke couldn't come in and do a job. I find it a little bit strange, to be honest with you.
The thing is, as well, I think you can make a strong argument, and we've had the discussions in this pod plenty of times. We spoke at length about it during the Euros. Obviously, it was a major talking point about Harry Kane, and even since then, that the one thing that's noticeable now with Harry Kane is that England feel a bit less dynamic going up front with Kane, because he's not playing off the shoulder in the way that he used to do. He's not really getting in behind as much. He's coming shorter for balls. He's, finding himself in, sort of facing up defenders and in front of him. Whereas when Watkins has been coming on and others, it's almost changed immediately, and England have been far, far more penetrative going forward. And actually, that's because Watkins does play that role. He'll get in behind the defender. He'll be in those areas you need him to be in. And now, listen, Harry Kane obviously will still score you goals, but I just think he's a different Harry Kane now than he used to be. And I think you have to look to the future as well and go, right, well, Harry Kane's maybe got 2 tournaments left in the tank. Maybe if he can stretch another 6 years, he should be able to. But at his, what is he, 31, 32 now?
31, yeah.
Yeah, so by 37 is what he would be by the time I think the next Euros rolls round. So at that point, you would be looking at an Ollie Watkins as your successor. And I just, as I say, they feel like a more dynamic flair to England's forward play and their press when Watkins is there.
Just on Harry Kane, we're going to see how many of us pick them for a combined 11 tonight. We're doing a combined Scotland and England 11 of current players. Stay tuned for that towards the end of the pod. Is it more then about what Connor says, Tom, about actually there needs to come a point where we bleed the successor to Harry Kane? There needs to come a point where someone gets a run of games and a chance to shine. Ollie Watkins showed up well in the Euros, but he was kind of not had the exposure that he's had since then. So obviously Dom Solanke's coming now. Watkins is 28, Solanke's 27. They're getting into their prime as well. So it comes a point, as I say, that is it more about the changing of the guard?
Mate, that was the point I was going to make. Absolutely spot on in that. There doesn't seem to be any kind of future thinking when it comes to that striker position. Even though Southgate kind of had his favourites and stuff, he would be more willing to kind of mix things up in defence and give people a go, and in midfield as well. Whereas when it comes to that striker position, it's just, it's very much Kane or nothing. Even like I said, even if he's kind of 70% fit in games against the likes of Luxembourg and Georgia or whoever, they still seem to persevere with Kane when you're thinking exactly what you just said. Maybe let's have a bit of future thinking and give Watkins or Solanke a couple of games against lesser opposition to, just to get a grip with things and just get a bit more international football, under their belt and give them a bit more experience. But it never seems to happen. It never seems to materialize. If Kane's, like I said, if Kane's kind of 70% fit, he's starting. It's a given. He's starting, and the strikers, it's going to be scraps for them. Whatever they get off the bench later on in the game. And I'll make a call with you now. If Kane's Kane's, like I said, if he's 78% fit, he'll probably start. He'll probably start ahead of those guys, which I just find really strange when we've got Greece and Finland coming up.
Well, do you think, what you were saying sort of off camera before we came on about Carsley and maybe his lack of sort of stature as England manager, that Harry Kane will say to him, "Look, I'm fit to play," and he'll just play?
Yeah. I do think there's a bit of that as well. Again, I don't want to go back into it too much, but Southgate in the last tournament, I said, I always felt that he I won't say fear, but he didn't have enough about him to kind of drop star players, to drop those big names when it was necessary, just because of who they were and what they've done and their stature in the game. And I think Carsley probably will fall. He'll fall under the same banner. He'll be the same as Southgate in that. And again, this ties. I don't want to get into it. I know we're not looking to, but I think this again ties into what I've said many a time, in that we need someone where a manager who has a bit more bottle about him, who's just will make the right footballing decisions. It won't be based on personnel and how big players are, etc., who they're playing for. They'll make footballing decisions based on the best interest of the team. And I don't think playing Harry Kane every game, that's the point I'm making, playing him over and over and over again is the best for England, considering how old he is now. And like you touched on, the guys behind him, how little international football they've had, when they will have to step up at some point in time, get them ready. So, yeah.
Connor, I'll come to you just in terms of, we spoke about the players that came in last time, Angel Gomez, Morgan Gibbs-White, they've managed to keep their places. But if you look at the guys that have come back in, Cole Palmer in particular, the start of the season he's had, are the England managers back in this sort of situation where they're trying to kind of, how do we get these best players on the park at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not a worst headache to have, to be fair.
Certainly not.
I do think, though, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Morgan Gibbs-White drop out of the squad this time round due to...
Is he gone, has he? Sorry, forgive me.
I think he was one of the... Was it 3 or 4, Tom? I think had dropped out. I think he was one of them that had to drop out. But either way, obviously, he's going to be a future option anyway. But, I mean, listen, it's a tough one for any manager to make. And I think the difficulty for Lee Carsley, as you've kind of touched on there as well, is that, he's sort of just holding the bag at the moment. I don't, as much as I can understand where there might be the concern that the FA will go down this route because it was what they did with Southgate almost, and just, throw him in and promote him for under 21s. I just think that they will eventually, by the time we get to the World Cup qualifiers, they will have somebody of a higher calibre than Lee Carsley in that job. I still am firmly, and I don't like saying it, but I am firmly of the belief that Eddie Howe is the man that they want to bring in, because you could make a strong case right now. In fact, I think it's almost inarguable that in terms of English managers out there at this moment in time, he's probably the best of the bunch. And that's not any of the other ones. And it's not even because I'm a Newcastle fan. I just think purely when you look at the level he's at just now and what he's been doing the last few years, you look at some of the other English managers who've been in and out of jobs, some that might have been in the picture like Graham Potter. I think, as I say, it's totally unarguable. He's the prime choice as an English manager. And I think they are biding their time, thinking the Nations League Carsley should guide them through without much fuss, because, all due respect, they're playing teams that they should be able to beat, no problem. And then once they get through that, the World Cup qualifiers are the big one. Obviously, that's the one you need to take seriously, and you will find a tough game or two in there. And I think we'll be seeing what happens at Newcastle with Eddie Howe. There's been talk about that recently. And then can they go and poach him? And I think that's what they want to do. But with the selection of players you've got, whoever comes in's got a great headache. I know they look a bit, as do obviously Scotland that we'll come on to later as well, a bit thin in the ground. I think particularly in the midfield, just with the injuries and the other issues that have seen players drop out. But the options they've got are still pretty damn good, you've got to say. Although I just wonder, actually, just to ask you, Tom, looking at how thin the midfield looks, do you think, and I've noticed as well on the FA's website about it, that Trent Alexander-Arnold's been listed as a midfielder, so do you think he'll play that role that Southgate attempted to play him in during the start of the Euros?
I hope not, mate. I hope not. It was... Look, I held my hands up, didn't I? Because I was, before the tournament started, I was thinking it was maybe something that could help us out. But I think it was, the experiment, it was a dud, a big dud, I think. I wouldn't want to see him. I wouldn't want to see him back in that midfield position. But it kind of ties into what I was going to say. You touched on Cole Palmer. I think, the worry I have about dallying around too much with the new managers, I think there's certain players in this team now England need to be building around. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold is one of them. I think he needs to be given that right back position. That needs to be his. That needs to be locked in. He should be the right back for England going forward now. And I think you touched on Palmer, Rob. I genuinely think the team needs to start being built around Palmer. I honestly believe he is that good. He's the most exciting English talent, for a while. In terms of attacking, I think he is. There was kind of people were getting excited with Foden, but I genuinely believe Palmer, not at this moment in time, maybe, he's still, quite relatively, new on the scene, isn't he? But, you consider what he's done so far, the amount of goals, the amount of assists he's got at such a high level. He's unbelievable. And, this is what they need the manager in as soon as whoever they're going to go with, whether that's Kazi or whoever, to start thinking, all right, these are the guys who've got to start building around. And I think Palmer's got to be one of them, 100%.
I think as well, you mentioned Foden. It's a balancing act, isn't it? Because obviously Phil Foden doing great things for Manchester City, but he can't bring it to the table internationally. You're just hoping whoever it's going to be, whether it's going to be Carsley, whether it's going to be Eddie Howe, whoever it may be, can manage that, and as you say, get the best out of him. Just final word then on England, lads, if we can. Lee Carsley just kind of said in his sort of interview today, on about players he'd left out and players he'd selected. He was saying that he'd watched every minute of every player that he selected and who he'd left out. Tom's looking very sceptical there. Saying that he's really well informed with his squad, and he feels that he's picked the best squad to go ahead and navigate these two games. Now, albeit we know the opposition it's not a Brazil, it's not an Argentina we're playing here, okay, but still it's a packed out Wembley tomorrow. It's sold out. There's still going to be a pressure on there as well. How do you feel sort of after two games, granted his third game, Tom, the sort of Carsley's assessment? How's he doing?
I don't think those two games really showed us anything. I don't want to go into it too much because we obviously discussed it on one of the pods last time round, but I don't think those two games, really proved anything. We didn't walk over the opposition. We struggled at times to break them down with the low block. So, I think if Carsley's got intentions of getting the job, permanently, I think England have got to step it up a notch. In these next two games, it's against Greece and Finland. I think Greece are a trickier test than maybe some people are giving them credit for, but still, I think we've got to be beating these teams comfortably and playing some good football at the same time. So I think there's definitely some pressure on Kazi because I think he's got to definitely take it up a notch from the previous first two games that he's had in charge.
Okay. Let's move north of the border then, Connor. Scotland squad announced some new faces over the last couple of days. Obviously, Nicky Devlin, the first when the squad was originally announced, and then we've now got his teammate on the other side, Jack McKenzie. He's called in at left back, and Kevin Nisbet's been pulled in as well, as early as today as well. So, in terms of Scotland, the injuries at the moment are horrific. We're having to, no disrespect to the likes of Jack McKenzie and Kevin Nisbet, we're having to go down to those guys because there's just, they've been decimated that badly.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, look, it's unfortunate the injuries, but then this is the perils, and it's always a topic of conversation. That the amount of international breaks that come, particularly at this point of a season, you're going to find squads down in the ground. You're going to find injuries out there, players not fully fit or what have you, because it's just the nature of the beast. A lot of football's getting played right now, and over the course of the next 2 months, as well as we build up to the winter break, it's going to be absolutely packed full. And so you'll see more of this. Obviously today, Shankland out and Nisbet in. That did surprise me a bit because I didn't have any inclination that Shankland was injured. But then again, the kind of form Shankland's been on and his confidence is a bit short at the moment might not be the worst thing. To be fair to Kevin Nisbet, the guys came into Aberdeen as I think a very solid piece of business for them. And he's been doing quite well in the appearances he's made. Scored a goal again, I believe, at the weekend. So, it's not a bad option. And he's proven, tried and tested in a Scotland jersey. He's done it before. Obviously, you've still got other options in there as well. But yeah, the defensive ones are interesting. I actually think and to be honest, perhaps it's maybe just the blinkers you have when you think of Scotland squads and you go, right, this is who's usually in it. Nicky Devlin is a guy who has never ever crossed my mind to be in the Scotland squad. I think for a long period of time he probably wasn't good enough. I think he was very good at Livingston, but he just wasn't at that level that you could have flung him in there. The fact that he's seamlessly stepped up from Livy to a club like Aberdeen and been a stalwart for them, particularly this season. I thought even last season with their struggles, he was still one of their better players, particularly defensively. I think I'm quite happy to see him in there, and to be perfectly honest with you, I'm hoping he starts. I really am hoping he gets a start.
I think he has to start. I think he's an upgrade on Tony Ralston, to be honest. I think he's playing the best football of his career.
You'd rather have Devlin out there than Ralston right now. And if you get Devlin on the right, and Robertson out on the left, and then you whoever the two in the middle are, I suspect Hanley and another. I'd like it to be Suter. I think he's earned just about enough of a right to. I mean, he's been doing okay recently at Rangers, and I think he should probably get the nod, but we'll see what happens. By the way, for me, I totally agree. I think he has to start Nicky Devlin. He's earned it. The guy has busted his backside for a long time to put himself in this position. And okay, injuries have given him the opportunity, but go and grab it. Go and show that you are fit to compete for that jersey.
Tom, one of the eyebrow raisers when the squad was announced was the fact that Craig Gordon was pulled back in from the cold. Now, that game against Finn was deemed as his farewell game, but Steve Clarke had kind of said that the player himself had said, look, this is my farewell, I'll be coming back for 76th cap, 77th cap, and here he is, albeit as well, early in the week, Angus Gunn's pulled out, so it looks like Craig Gordon is probably going to start in Zagreb on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's... Well, yeah, I remember talking to you guys after, that eventful last game was obviously what you thought it was going to be his last game. And I remember you two saying you probably felt that was the right time for him to kind of hang up the jersey. And I remember you guys having a couple of conversations in the past, when Gunn was being questioned a bit off the back of some of his performances, some of the goals he'd let in, and some of the other guys you've got kind of waiting in the wings thinking that they deserve the chance. So, yeah, I was going to ask you the question because I was just having a quick look while you guys were talking at all the injuries you've got, who you thought was going to play in goal, replace Angus Gunn because he's obviously dropped out. It's interesting. You definitely think it's going to be Gordon then, not one of the other guys?
Well, I don't know what Connor thinks, but I think it's got to be Craig Gordon. He's playing for Hearts. John Carver was kind of very complimentary today. He said something really weird though, that I didn't like. He said he's 41, but he's had 3 years of injuries, so he's 38 in football in terms, which I just found bizarre mathematics. But there we go, John. I think he starts, Connor. Robbie McCrory's come in. John McCracken's had an okay start to the season, but I don't think worthy of starting against this level of opposition. Do you?
No, I think I think not, and I think, to be honest, is slightly unfortunate as it is for him. I think the last couple of weeks probably haven't done him much good either. I mean, it was he had a bit of a bad one recently in terms of a mistake, which listen happens to all goalkeepers. It's just the nature of the beast. Sod's law for him. It comes right at the time of the national break. But yeah, I suspect it will be Craig Gordon. I mean, Robin McCrory's going to come in out of the cold, but he's not going to start. And so naturally, it has to be Craig Gordon at 41, which, listen, fair play. If he can still put a shift in for us, then happy days. I do feel, and I know it might sound controversial because he hasn't played, but I feel some sympathy for Liam Kelly, because if you can bring Robbie McCrory in out the cold, why couldn't Liam Kelly have filled a spot there? He's been in and around the squad a number of times. He's made appearances, a few appearances for Scotland, not many, but a few. I think he's got more caps under his belt than Robbie McCrory does, certainly. Again, nothing against McCrory or McCracken, but yeah, that's one they might have looked at. Other than that, the options are pretty thin in the ground in terms of at a level you need them to be at. Obviously, Xander Clark currently has some injury issues, which is unfortunate. Because you'd fancy...
Isn't the issue with Clark and Kelly the fact that just they're out the picture at their clubs? They are number twos now, whereas McCrory's kind of, I know he's been chopped and changed this season, but he's actually starting some games for Kilmarnock.
I would grant you that, absolutely, 100%, and that's why he's come in. And listen, I like Robert McCrory. I've nothing against him being in. And you're right, that's why it is. It's because the two of them are obviously not currently playing. I think there is an injury issue with Clark, to be fair to him. But my concern, though, from a Scotland perspective, when I look at our goalkeepers, is it does feel like, I mean, you can't rely on Craig Gordon forever. You know, it's fine, he's coming back in now, but fast forward a year from now, you know, at 42, is he still going to be going? Is he still going to answer the call if Angus Gunn picks up another injury? And then you are looking at your other options thinking, right, well, who's there? I know McCracken, obviously they're looking at him as for the future as well, but it's about when you get that opportunity. Obviously Angus Gunn is the number one, unless he's injured, and then after that it's take your pick. So yeah, Craig Gordon will start the games, and we take it for there, because see, to be fair, I'm not even sure it would be fair to John McCracken or Robbie McCrory, but particularly McCracken, to throw him in for his first caps against Croatia and Portugal. I think that's a big ask. Whereas Craig Gordon, he's been around the block, he's played this quality team before, he knows what to expect.
Yeah, I think that is it in a nutshell. So you're going to jump in there, Tom?
I was just going to say, you need Jack Butland to find a Scottish grandmother or something like that, don't you? Something
no, don't threaten me with a good time.
Tom, I'll come back to you. Just we mentioned this on the last pod. We did more so Gilmore and McTominay, but Shea Adams has started like a steam train in Torino. He really has. He scored 3 or 4 goals now. Lyndon Dykes, as you spoke to me about the other week, is, you know, he's sub appearances for him at Birmingham in League One. You know, with Scotland sort of threadbare, as it were, there's a real onus on these 3 players to come in and sort of turn on that flare. You know, McTominay's been a revelation at Napoli. They're already singing his name. Tom?
Connor, you coming to me? Were you coming to me then, mate? Sorry, bud. I thought you were asking Connor that question. Yeah, I think so. It's yeah. We spoke about it, didn't we? Sorry, mate. I was doing some research, mate. I got the BBC. I was looking at your Scotland men's football team latest news, reading a little bit on Ben Doak. Sorry, mate. Yeah, I think 100%. We had a chat, didn't we, about Dykes and the fact that he's not getting much football at Blues. You know, their main men are obviously Stansfield. Yeah, and so surely if Che Adams is fit, he's got to be starting these games, because, like you said, the start he's had in Italy, you know, he's playing he's doing well, he's scoring a few goals, and he's playing at a top level, isn't he? You know, so 100%. He's. I'd be shocked if he. I can only think the reason he wouldn't play Adams is a system thing, in terms of the approach, the tactics, the way they're setting up, maybe. But in terms of the quality the players possess, surely Che Adams is your best striking option at this moment in time.
Connor, is that something you agree with in terms of output? You've got to really be looking at Adams and McTominay if you're going to cause a threat to this Croatian defence.
100%, yeah. Again, as you say, blighted by the injuries within. But Adams, for me, I totally agree with Tom. I think he's got to be the number one pick at this moment in time. Compared with Dykes and Nisbet, he's certainly played the most football recently.
Let's be clear. There is no fear of Kevin Nisbet starting this game.
No, there's not. Absolutely not. That's what I'm saying. That's why it has to be Adams, because you've got three strikers and two of them aren't playing. Nisbet is, with Pape Gay being injured for Aberdeen, undoubtedly he's going to be getting much more game time coming up, and that might serve well come the next national break. By the way, that could be a very good thing for us, particularly if there's still issues with a Shankland or a Dykes or whatever. Then it's a good option to have. And as Tom touched on there, at QPR, obviously Dykes has kind of slipped down the pecking order this season, whereas Adams is on fire at the moment. Give him the start. And see what he can do. As you say, it's him and McTominay. You're looking at the biggest threats. Always gutting when you're missing on McGinn in your midfield, because he's such a huge player for us to be missing. And listen, I know Aston Villa will obviously be missing their captain as well, although they seem to be doing okay at the moment without him. But I think it's Adams up front, and then I suppose the one question is, though, Robert, is if he decides to make a change, which he probably will. I dare say Adams isn't going to play the full 180 minutes in both games. So who do you bring on first then? Do you bring Nisbet on before you bring on a Dykes, or does Dykes come on because of that prior experience in a Scotland jersey?
I think it depends where the game's at. If you're 2-0 up and you've got 10 minutes to go, then maybe you do say to Nisbet, on you go, son. But if it's 0-0 or you're 1 down and you're trying, you're not being able to get up the pitch, then maybe it is a Dykes you bring on to get you up the park. I think it's horses for courses, as they say.
Well, listen, that's the one thing about Lyndon Dykes, by the way, he's very, very good at, is the hold-up play and getting you up the pitch is exactly that. I think it's a slight area of Che Adams' game that could be doing me a bit of improvement. He isn't always the best when it comes to the hold-up. He's much more effective when he's able to actually, get him behind the defender and get a ball through to him, and he'll sort it away, no problem. But the actual hold up and playmaking himself. So it's an interesting dynamic. But yeah, Adams and McTominay, if we're going to have a goal scoring threat, are going to be huge in this. And listen, I think Steve Clarke needs that as well, because I do feel, and I read something recently about it as well, that these next 4 Nations League games could be potentially telling in terms of Steve Clarke's tenure.
Just do me a favour, dip your mic in and out. It was coming in, it was coming out. It just wasn't as crisp as what you've been for the previous 30 minutes, for the last 3 minutes there. I do want to come back to you, Connor, on a question just about the media side of it and where the game is going to be shown. But Tom, I'll come to you. I don't know if you saw, I'm deviating slightly because Connor mentioned John McGinn. There was an interview with McGinn at the Bayern Munich game, and he was talking about Unai Emery and how influential he's been to him, and I actually think, Connor said there McGinn's, a massive player for Scotland, and he is, but I don't think he's been at his buzzing best since the end of last season, I must say, for Scotland. So certainly since we qualified, I don't think so anyway. But anyway, he'd said, Unai Emery said to him when he'd come off injured, look, you were poor in that game, and if you're not any better, you won't get back in my team. Do you think that's maybe good man management, in the sense that he's maybe seen a dip from McGinn? Not a massive fall off, but a dip, and he's trying to just reignite that fire, and that might actually be good for Steve Clarke in Scotland.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I didn't see the full interview, but I did see some clips, and I think McGinn's the type of character he took it the right way, didn't he? There's probably players out there who wouldn't take it the right way and get offended and get a sulk on, but I think, McGinn's the type of character to take it the right way. He's going to work hard to try and get back into the team. I think Villa, as much as it pains me to say it, have stepped up again. They've stepped up again with the signings that they made in the summer. They're obviously competing in the Champions League this season. They brought Onana in, who started the season really well. So, yeah, I think it's just good man management from Emery. He obviously knows McGinn's character. The new guys, like I said, Onana, for example, has come in. Tielemans is playing more regularly now, and he's performing well. They've had a great start to the season. So he's basically telling him, you got to up your game. You got to up your game to stay in this side and keep your spot. And obviously now that he's injured, try and work his way back in. I think the amount of games Villa are now playing, he will get the opportunity to get back in the team. It's an interesting one because, yeah, Villa, like I said, I do think they've stepped it up a notch, I think. And as much I'm a big fan of McGinn. I'm a massive fan. I really wanted West Brom to sign him when he came from Hibs, and Villa signed him for absolute peanuts when they were in the Championship. I'll never forget it because I remember him being linked with him, saying we need to be in for this guy. He's top class. He could become a real player. But I don't know whether Villa will soon become a bit of a step up for him. And I don't want it to sound too harsh, but I just think the way where Villa are heading, which is just, they're just continually heading up, whether McGinn might find himself as a bit more of a bit part squad player for Villa in terms of the guys that they're now bringing in, the money that they're splashing out for some of these players. Don't know what you guys think. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but
no, Connor, do you think that that's actually a really good point? And that may be why Unai Emery is saying to John McGinn, when you come back from this injury, you need to be better. You need to be stepping it up. You need to be going again.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, listen, Villa are in a place now where they've got real strength and depth in that squad. And for any player in that team is going to have to be playing well and be fighting for that jersey. And you look at guys who are, gradually making their way to becoming regular starters as well. You look at a guy like John Duran and how great he's been doing for them in recent times in the midfield. I mean, the guy doesn't do tap-ins, does he? I mean, absolutely spectacular stuff for him. And when you see them, and this is the thing, when you see them go and beat Bayern Munich without a John McGinn in the team, it shows that they've got the replacements ready to go. And so, yeah, but it's a positive thing for McGinn as well, because I think he's the kind of player who will use that as the motivation he needs to up his game. And you can see there's been a drop off with him, not just at club level, but even at national level. I think he's, as I say, he's an important player for us. But I'm looking at the John McGinn that was playing for us, a year, 18 months ago, compared to the John McGinn that we had during the Euros, and just before that, and he wasn't quite the same player. There was a drop off. I think at the time you kind of put that down to the fact there was a drop off in our squad as a whole, in terms of performance level. But no, listen, he's working under, I think, the right man to get out of him what he needs, John McGinn, because Unai Emery, he's an excellent man manager. He knows how to get the best out of his players, and no doubt that when John McGinn comes back, we will see a much, much better, much more hungry John McGinn again.
Okay, Connor, very quickly then, final word just on this broadcasting issue, because I think it's prevalent in terms of it's happened again. So neither ITV, STV, no one could take these games on board. They're going to be shown on Viaplay's YouTube channel, which for the older generation could be a tricky one to find or not found at all.
Well, exactly. I think it's ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, what is the hold up here? Viaplay no longer broadcast in the UK, right? They pulled their sports broadcasting, and everything related to Scottish football, seemingly apart from the international games, all transferred over to Premier Sports again. So why didn't the national team games? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for them being free to view, and I think they should be. I have long felt frustrated that on STV, which stands for Scottish Television, England games get played for free all the time, and not a Scotland game to be found in sight. And by the way, I'm not knocking England games, that should also be free. But it feels like England fans are getting a bit of a luxury that Scotland fans aren't getting, and that doesn't feel fair to me.
Even Wales, even their games, BBC Wales tend to pick up a lot of the Welsh games. Same in Northern Ireland over there. So I don't know why they couldn't strike a deal. They've had plenty of time since the last international break to come up with it. I can't imagine why Viaplay would be holding it up, because there's no commercial interest for them in it. They can't make money off it abroad because, with all due respect, don't think there's many people in Scandinavia chomping at the bit to watch a Scotland game. So it's frustrating. Hopefully, this is the last we'll have this issue, and after these two internationals coming up, we'll hopefully get ourselves into a position where one of the main broadcasters get their hands in their pockets and sort it out, whether that's STV, whether it's the BBC, or whether it is Premier Sports. I can't quite put my finger on why Premier Sports haven't sorted this either, because to my memory, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but before Viaplay took over, Premier Sports did have the rights to the Scotland games. They were shown the Nations League games, and Sky Sports also had some as well. Which is another anomaly. Sky Sports seemingly washing their hands of international football, and I can't quite understand that. So, especially when they've got Sky Sports Plus, I mean, what a perfect opportunity to display Sky Sports Plus during an international break, where you can have your championship games. Oh, and by the way, here's a selection of Nations League games for you as well, because there's some cracking games, particularly in the top leagues between big countries, and they're on, channels that either most people don't have or they're just not on at all. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll get it all sorted come the next one. Fortunately, I do have access to YouTube, so it won't be an issue for me, but the older generation might struggle with that.
Okay, look, listen, it feeds into a wider question. Now, I did want to bring a sort of a debate question to the party, because I thought we debated quite well last time we were on. So it was just, I kind of listened to a podcast the other day, and they were kind of saying, look, already, is the Nations League dead? In that there is no appetite for it. Now, we've just highlighted there, broadcasters are reluctant to pick up the games. Fans are kind of tuning out, and also, Connor, your point about John McGinn, and maybe not seeing the best of him, is that through too many games? Tom, I'll come to you. Look, we love international football here and we want to celebrate it, but is there a point where, look, we've had an international break last month, we've got an international break this month, there's going to be another one in November, before these World Cup qualifiers start next year?
Yes, mate. Yeah, I think you're spot on. You just chipped in there. I was going to jump in when you were talking about McGinn, saying, he played a hell of a lot of games last season for Aston Villa, and he's obviously played in the tournament in the summer, and it's probably a bit of burnout there, isn't there? The amount of football he's played of late. And I was going to say, a break. I know he's got a bit of a knock, but obviously a break would probably do him a bit of good, recharge the batteries, etc. But yeah, I definitely feel it's at the forefront at the moment, isn't it? There's almost daily. There's more footballers, more coaches, managers, pundits coming out, kind of giving their take on, the amount of fixtures these players are having to play in, and the top players are obviously adding all the international football into that mix as well, and yeah, it's feeling like something's got to change soon, doesn't it? I think that's my take. Is that I feel like it's getting louder and louder, isn't it? This I don't know what you call it, but you know what I mean.
They're being overlooked, aren't they? They're being overlooked.
Yeah. This conversation, because then everything I've read from the players is that they're not being involved in any conversations whatsoever. All these decisions are being made by people elsewhere. There's no player representation whatsoever in terms of this fixture congestion, the amount of games are playing, these new international tournaments that have obviously now come into the mix, which are adding to that. So yeah, and in terms of appetite, I think you're right. You're obviously talking about the Scotland situation, but I think the easiest way to tell, I think, in terms of appetite from the fans for these international games is you just got to look on social media. You just got to look on X and Facebook and the football pages and the podcasts, etc. And it's all people just having a dig and having a moan that there's another international break coming up, and then, like you said, it's not going to be long before there's another one. They've got to be. They've definitely got to be careful in that respect and try and get a better balance, because I did feel in the past there was a balance there. Maybe this is a bit of rose-tinted glasses, a bit of nostalgia coming into it, but I always felt the balance between club football and international football was right, because when international football came about, I was excited for it. I was looking forward to watching my international team play, and then obviously getting the club football back up and running again. But I do feel the more and more of these international fixtures they're squeezing in, when you realise that there's another one around the corner and club football stopping for another 2 weeks, it is always a little bit of a sigh and a bit of a moan and groan, especially so soon into the season. It feels like we've only just got up and running, and we've had two international breaks. So, yeah, I think it's like I said. I think the conversations, it's getting louder and louder, and I think it will only be a matter of time before something's potentially done about it, or they at least start bringing footballers into the mix to chat about it, and take their their thoughts and take their views seriously.
Connor, is that the point, actually, that the fact that the players haven't been involved, these decisions have been made by guys that don't play the game? I had Kevin De Bruyne, that's him. He said he's had enough, no more international football for him. Rodri was quite vocal at the last international break, saying, look, it's getting to the point now where something's got to happen. There's got to be a conversation. Where do you sit on this one? Because as I say, as a podcast, we enjoyed the international break. We like to see the teams play. However, just because it just seems like the Nations League is not a coveted tournament. Could it be that it's put to one side so that the players are getting that bit more rest?
Well, so I'm kind of in two minds on it. There's one part of me that goes, well, you're not forced to play international football as a player. It's not like club football. You don't get paid for it. It's you're in effect volunteering to do it. So if these players don't want to do it, then they don't have to. Now, of course, that does then mean that you'll see slightly lesser squads. Obviously, you might not see the absolute best of those nations all the time. But I think with the Nations League, the thing that sort of annoys me is the fact that you look at where we are just now. We just had the Euros in the summer, a festival of international football. We come back to the bread and butter stuff after that. We're barely kicking off and getting the season started. We're having fixtures having to be rearranged for different reasons, and we're having to cram in, League Cup fixtures with league fixtures, with other fixtures that have coming up, European stuff as well for the bigger clubs who are involved, and you're having to find space in the calendar to fit that in, and then we're going to have these international breaks. When you think, Scotland, for example, round off our international break this time round a week on yesterday, so Tuesday coming in the 15th of October, and then the next game they'll play is just over 4 weeks after that, on the 15th of November, which is madness. I don't think it needs to be that regular. Plus, what they should be doing in the Nations League is the Nations League, in my opinion, should always tie in with the Euro qualifiers for two reasons. One, it is a UEFA competition anyway, but two, it has much more meaning to the European Championships than it does the World Cup, because when you're playing the Nations League in the build-up to a Euro qualifier, it gives an opportunity to countries, shall we say, that might struggle in the main qualifiers to have a playoff there, so they can still get to the Euros. It's a route, it's a path to the Euros, and so why not line it up with that? And then you could have had, instead of these breaks for this, you could have went, right, we'll come back for the Euros, we'll get through the league stuff, we'll have a week's international break in November, get a couple of friendly games lined up, because there's nothing wrong with international friendly. It gives an opportunity, and you still get a bit of international football. And then we'll plough on through the winter break, and then we'll go into the World Cup qualifiers. And then by the time they're done the following year, you then go in and go, right, World Cup, Nations League comes back again for the Euros. So you in effect would do the Nations League the year before a European competition all the time. A bit like, you remember the Confederations Cup they used to do? Similar in vein to that. That's how that should work, because it ultimately only benefits for that. For the World Cup one, it's pointless. All it is promotion and relegation, and I don't think anybody really cares all that much. I mean, as much as I want Scotland to do well, I don't care if we get relegated for this group for two reasons. One, it has zero bearing on us qualifying for a tournament, and two, we're playing against top teams. So it's, as far as I'm concerned, great occasions. But if we go back into League B, actually gives us a better opportunity of getting a playoff spot for the Euros. Do you know what I mean? So it's, I think they have to find that balance. They absolutely do. Because as Tom touched on as well, it's about player burnout. Players will, they'll be absolutely on their backsides if they have to play this amount of football all the time. And okay, they've got a break coming up in the winter for a couple of weeks, but that's compared to what they're having to do now, and particularly December. We all know how packed a month that is. Something's got to give, and they've got to speak with the players' bodies and representatives to sort it out.
Yeah, I think as well, just when you were saying that, the Euros was a festival of football, I think towards the latter stages, some quarters were kind of bemoaning the quality on show. Maybe that feeds into this argument as well. Okay, we'll park that there. We'll finish on a bit of positivity, a bit of fun, because we're challenged with coming up with a combined 11, Scotland and England, of a current squad. You can have 6 from one, 5 from the other, whatever way you wanted to have it. I think we won't go player by player because we'll be here all night. So I think we'll go goalkeeper, midfield, defence, midfield, and then attack. Yeah. So I'll start with my goalie, if you don't mind. We'll just go clockwise.
Can I just quickly confirm? Is there any formations here?
Yeah. Should I name my formation before I start? I've went 4-3-3.
Right. Yeah. Good.
I've went 4-3-3, and I did have Craig Gordon in, but I scribbled him out. I've gone for Jordan Pickford. And do you know why? It's really, really petty, because he saves penalties. And I thought, if I'm going to get to a World Cup final, I might need somebody to save penalties. So I've gone for Jordan
Pickford. Listen, I get it. He's England's number one goalkeeper. I have for quite a while believed that that jersey should have been handed over to Nick Pope. I think he more than earned the right. I think when you look at it,
he can't even hide it, can he? He can't even hide it.
Well, no, taking that out of the equation.
I'm hoping Nick Pope's your pick. Then is he your goalkeeper pick?
He is, but we'll come to that. But I just want to put some stats to you, right? Just because I have done a bit of homework on this to back up my point, and that it isn't just black and white tinted spectacles, right?
Okay, mate. Yeah.
So for context here, right? Over the last 3 seasons, right? Domestically, we're talking, not talking internationally. Nick Pope's had 59 appearances. Bear in mind, obviously, got injured for a large spell last season. In these 59 appearances, he's kept 22 clean sheets, right? Jordan Pickford has kept the same amount of clean sheets, but in 90 appearances. So Nick Pope is averaging a clean sheet roughly 1 every 3 games, whereas Jordan Pickford's averaging a clean sheet 1 every 4 and a bit games. Now, I appreciate that the levels of the clubs are at, obviously Everton struggles and stuff like that. I do understand that. But let's be honest here, how many individual errors has Jordan Pickford made in an Everton jersey compared to how many Nick Pope's made for Newcastle? There's been quite a few for Pickford in an Everton jersey. Admittedly, not so much in an England jersey, I will grant you. But I just feel as if, how can Jordan Pickford consistently be getting made number one keeper for England whilst at club level his performances are not actually consistently all that great? And even before the Nick Pope argument, I had felt that with Pickford that at some point you have to give an opportunity to one of the other guys in there, whether that is my preferred option, which would be Nick Pope, or whether it is a Dean Henderson or whoever else is in the wings, because Pickford's had the better part of nearly a decade now as England's number one goalkeeper. And I feel as if, yes, he's more than earned that, but I just feel it's time for somebody else to get the gloves.
Tom, you've gone for Pickford, right? Back me up here.
Mate, you're going to laugh at mine. I've gone for Gunn. There's a little bit. Listen, there's a little bit.
He's keep me stick for Pope and he's not even Pickford.
Listen. There's a little bit of tactical pick there. But genuinely, You guys know I'm a fan of Gunn. I know he's been struggling a little bit for Scotland of late.
You better have a good defence in front of him. That's all I'm going to say.
He's been struggling a bit for Scotland of late. But look, for Norwich in the Championship, he's been Mr. Consistent. He was one of the best goalies in the division, if not the best last season. Had a fantastic season for Norwich. So yeah, I've gone Gunn, but I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit tactical in terms of getting that Scotland-England balance. So yeah, Gunn.
Okay, I'll give you my 4 at the back.
Yep.
I've got Aaron Hickey at right back, midfield, a centre back pairing of John Stones and Mark Gay, and I've stuck Kieran Tierney at left back just for a bit of solidity.
Oof, interesting.
Connor?
No, so there's, I think, one player in common we've got. I've got Alexander Arnold at right back, because it's where he should be playing, and absolutely he's the best there. I've got Suter and Mark Gahey as the centre back pairing. I must admit that was tough because I looked at our centre backs and I thought, there's not a great option there. And there's no way Grant Hanley ever makes it into one of my teams, I can assure you right now. So I thought, Suter, Gahey, and I've got Robertson at left back. I mean, think about it. Even the chemistry, him and Alexander Arnold, of course, play together at Liverpool. Know each other well. And I just think, I'm genuinely thinking about the quality of delivery both them possess. If you've got that on both sides, I think you've got a real threat. So that's what I've gone with.
Tom?
I've got the best defence out of us three. Anyway,
I've
gone Trent Alexander-Arnold, John Stones, Mark Gay, Andy Robertson. And that allows Gunn, I think, in goal. That back four. That's a solid back four, I think. So that's.
Can I just say, Tom? I was very close to having John Stones in there instead of Suter, I must admit. Because that's the only difference between ours. The only reason I didn't, a bit like you with Angus Gunn, was simply tactical. Because I thought I can't overload my defence with England players when there's at least 2 that I would want in my midfield. So it's just simple as that.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of overload, I've overloaded my midfield with Scotland players. So I've gone...
I think our midfields are going to be very similar. Go on.
I've gone Gilmore, McGinn, McTominay. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you went with a 3 in mid. See, I've got a 4 in midfield. I have a 4-4-2.
Okay,
should have stated that prior. I've gone McTominay, McGinn, Rice, Gordon.
Who's playing on the right of that? Or is it a diamond?
Well,
what is it?
It's a diamond. It's not.
Right, okay.
McGinn, Rice, Gordon. Yeah.
I'm worried about the balance of that midfield.
My issue is I had to find a way of fitting in both McTominay and Rice because Gordon and McGinn were always going to come in, and I was like, well, both of them, McTominay and Rice, both should be there. And I thought, well, if you go with a kind of diamond and have Rice as the sort of defensive midfield, and then you can have Gordon and McGinn sort of more centrally stroke wide, which Gordon does. He roams wide quite well for Newcastle, and then McTominay's up there as your sort of attacking midfielder.
What was your formation, Tom? How many have you got?
So I went for a 4-2-3-1, but it can be like a 4-3-3 as well. So I went for. So my midfield was Gilmore and McGinn sitting, and then the 3 behind the striker were Palmer, McTominay, and Gordon.
I think I'm.
There we go. See, Tom knows Anthony Gordon all day long.
Hold on a minute. I haven't released my front 3 yet. Wait a minute. Steady on.
Go on, then.
That's all right then. Go on.
Because we've only got one to pick now up top. So go on. What's your front 3?
My front 3. I've put Gordon on the left. I've squeezed shoehorn Palmer in on the right. I had to get him in, so he's in on the right.
Yeah.
And I've gone for my number 9, Ollie Watkins.
Oh, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, thus far, can I just point out that the only player that we all share in common in our attacking lineups is Anthony Gordon.
Yeah.
Up the mags. Well, I've got a front 2, obviously, so I went with a sort of 4-4-2. I genuinely, I hemmed and hawed about this. I wasn't sure. I went Watkins, and then
Have you got to squeeze one Scotland? Is there one more Scotland player to come from you?
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
Connor?
Well, I've got two strikers. It's a 4-4-2. So I've got Watkins up there in a partnership with Che Adams.
All right.
The difficulty that I had though, it was threefold actually. The difficulty because I kind of went right. Harry Kane, should Harry Kane be in there? Look what he's done in his career. Look what he's done at England. And then I'm going, currently, would I actually be playing Harry Kane? Maybe not. And that's why I went Watkins. And then it was the same with the Scotland striker. I was like, ideally, if you had an absolutely fully firing Lawrence Shankland, he would be the best. But Che Adams right now is 100% the best striker Scotland's got.
So final slot to you.
Yeah, I've gone the big man, Mr. Most England goals of all time, mate. I've gone for Harry Kane. I just think
hold on a minute. The last man I thought you'd pick Kane. You picked Kane.
No, listen. This is my reasoning behind it. If you had Palmer, McSauce, and Gordon playing behind Harry Kane, mate, it'd be he'd be back to his best. He'd be scoring goals for fun, 100%.
Who was your two sitting? Sorry,
my two sitting were Gilmore and McGinn.
So he'd still be coming back to the halfway line to get it off Gilmore.
Nah, with those three behind him, he'll be scoring the goals for fun again, mate. He'll be hitting Bayern Munich numbers. I'm sure of it. So,
well, here's a question for you then to run it off, because I think this could be interesting. Who would your manager be? Do they have to be Scottish or English?
Oh, so we can have anyone not out the current two.
Anyone, obviously. It doesn't have to be the current two.
Past or present?
Present, current Scottish or current English manager, but they have to be Scottish and English. So there's no Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola coming in here. Although Pep's not made many mistakes, but I'm sure Cole Palmer's probably up there at the top of the list of them.
I'm going to go Scottish because I just think I should. I am Scottish, so I'm going to go Scottish. My manager's Dale McInnes. I'm giving mine to Dale McInnes. There you go.
Oh, Derek McInnes. Go on. I'm all up for that. That was good choice. Good choice.
Oh,
I'd go. I know. Well, I'm probably going to be the same as Connor's pick. I'd probably go I think the best English manager at this moment in time probably is Eddie Howe. I do think that. I agree with him. So I'd probably go Eddie Howe, yeah.
Yeah, it's Eddie Howe. Yeah.
I was going to say, don't be so convoluted. We know you're going to say Eddie Howe.
yeah. Well,
he's annoyed I jumped in there before him and picked him.
Yeah, it's Eddie Howe, isn't it? As I said earlier.
Why ask the question so everyone would say Eddie Howe? We know you're the game caller.
Yeah, and you went with Derek McInnes. You're going to give. I mean, I love Derek McInnes, but you're going to give that squad to Derek McInnes.
I think you could get the best out of Cole Palmer. Right, lads. Brilliant shift as always. So England tomorrow night, sold out Wembley against the Greeks, and then we've got Scotland on Saturday night against Zagreb. Interesting to see how those two pan out. We'll try and squeeze something in before I think Finland a Sunday night, and obviously then Portugal on Tuesday night, so we can get something in between them. There have been some people watching during this. Yes, delighted to say thanks for joining us. If you are enjoying it, leave us a wee comment, like, subscribe, follow us on X. Get in our DMs, do whatever you like. Just let us know that you're there and you're loving it. And we'll see you guys on the other side. My thanks to Tom, my thanks to Connor, and thanks for joining us.